I'm an anesthesiologist. I worked in the intensive care unit for 14 to 15 years. The event I'm going to tell happened in 2014 when I was working in the intensive care unit in a private hospital in Izmir. We had a patient who was from Diyarbakir. Her name was Sabiha. She was in the hospital because of the congestive heart failure and chronic renal failure diagnoses. She was 74 years old. Since there was no room in the general intensive care unit, she was staying in cardiovascular surgery intensive care department, CVC for short. Our CVC intensive care unit had 3 beds. I was on my night watch. My only patient was Mrs. Sabiha. The intensive care unit line rang at 2:45 a.m. The caller was the night supervisor. He told me that 2 women will come. Please take them in and let them visit their aunt, Sabiha. I told him, won't the nurse will complain in the morning? It is forbidden to accept visitors at this hour. He replied, it is all on me. However, the doorbell rang, so I went and opened the door. There were 2 women in their 20s at the door. I forgot how to speak when I saw them. They were so beautiful that I cannot describe them. I helped them to wear an apron and bonnet, but they were not speaking at all. I told them come in and they entered. They went right next to the patient. They were not speaking again, but it was like they were communicating with their eyes. At the same moment, the night supervisor entered and sat next to me. I was still watching them. One of the women looked at me and smiled. Then one of the women took something around her chest area and put it in the mouth of the patient. I suddenly stand up and yelled, what are you doing? Both of them started to scream, and I think they were afraid. The night supervisor got mad at me and told me, leave them alone. I said, brother, don't you see? They stuck something in her mouth. He replied, don't worry. Women left and I was curious. I went and opened the mouth of Mrs. Sabiha. I saw 3 strings of hair in her mouth. I took them and threw them away. I asked her, who were they? Do you know them? She replied, who? I didn't see anyone. I said, are you sure? 2 women came next to you a minute ago. She replied, no, my son. No one came, and this put stress on me. I called one of the nurses from another floor, and I told her I will take a 10-minute break. I went out and started to smoke in front of the emergency unit entrance. Meanwhile, the night supervisor came. I told him, you put me in trouble this night. He replied, what are you talking about? I don't understand it. I said, you sent 2 women to CVC as the relatives of the patient. You told me to take them in, and then you also visited me. He said, no, I didn't come and send anyone to you. What are you talking about? I said, you called me and said, 2 women will come for visit. Let them in. And then you came and sit next to me. He was really getting mad as I speak. He said, I'm sleeping in the doctor's room, in the emergency unit for 3 hours. What are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. I said, okay, brother, never mind, and went back. I entered the intensive care unit and sat down. I was about to get mad. Then the night supervisor came again. He told me, what just happened? Tell me. I told him what happened, and he told me, come, let's check the security cam footage. We called security and visited the room. We checked the footage. I see myself helping someone wearing the apron and even tying it, but those 2 women were not on the screen. It all looks like I'm doing everything on my own. After 5 minutes of footage, the door opens on its own. I said, look, here you are entering the unit, but you are invisible right now. Anyway, my shift ended in the morning, but I didn't go to my home. At noon, patient relatives are accepted. I waited for them, especially the relatives of Mrs. Sabiha. At noon, her relative came, and her son and his spouse. I talked to them before they enter and talked about what happened. They said, this is not the first. They have tried plenty of times before. I replied, how? I didn't understand. He said, my mother has land and fields in the village. My stepmother is trying every possible way to get these lands and fields. Spell, amulets, haunting. She tried all the dirty work. This should be one of them. However, thank God, we get rid of them all. Do not be afraid. Get used to it. I told him, how can I get used to this? I can't deal with such things while working. We went to the chief physician with the night supervisor and explained the situation. They transferred her to another hospital. This is what I experienced, my friends.